Welcome to another Friday Fun Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and live in color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeem McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, too, you can catch up on our other live shows that we have airing throughout the week. So if you happen to miss them, you can go back and watch them and listen to it at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, make sure you catch us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, please find Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You want to catch the audio version of this show, you can do so by subscribing to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's War Media Podcast. That's PODCASTS. That's War Media Podcast. We are available on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And speaking of War Media, go and give them a follow at WAR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please find War Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something stupid, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools the bill and be about.
Bye-bye.
I love when she says that. But before we begin, we must remind you that you also catch Sports Zone Chicago now live on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. If you don't have a Roku TV, we know you have a bunch of handheld devices laying around: iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, your personal PC. Whatever it is, just go to the Google Play Store, download the Roku TV app, and access Sports Zone Chicago through that way. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now on Roku TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
Anywhere, everywhere that you want, it's right there for you.
And you know we can provide.
There you go.
I ain't moving on. All right, let's get this party started, Lakina, by discussing the NCAA tournament. The round of 16-8 took place last night. We had two instant classics, and we will start with the first game. The first of the instant classics, it was the Gonzaga Bulldogs. They gave the UCLA Bruins a run for their money, and they defeated the UCLA Bruins in comeback fashion by the score of 79-76. Julian Starweather hit a logo three to give the Gonzaga Bulldogs the lead right back, and they held on to win. Lakina, as I mentioned to you before we went on the air today, it was an instant classic. I had a chance to catch most of the second half. UCLA came out on fire in the first half. Drew Timme was the only one that kept the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the game, but it was my man Jaime Vasquez that kept them in. Tiger Campbell tried, but it wasn't enough. For one stretch in that second half, UCLA went over 11 minutes without scoring. They were out second chance points. It was 18-0 advantage for Gonzaga at one point. But UCLA did not quit, but they just couldn't pull away. Even though they grabbed the lead with 12 seconds to go, it wasn't enough. Gonzaga held on to win.
Yeah, it's one of those games where it was a game of runs. I mean, UCLA was up 13 in the first half. They actually were up as much as 16. They didn't score for almost 12 minutes. That's not going to win you a lot of games. And, they were forcing shots. Shots weren't falling. They were bricking shots. I mean, I know some people want to blame the depth because, of course, they had various injuries as going on. But Jalen Clark among others. But even still, you should have put Gonzaga away. And their defense and such kind of let them down. Yes, Timme had a great show in the second half with 36 points. Jared Stratham, Strother, I should say, had 16 points, including that game-winning three. I mean, it was actually Timmy missed a couple of key free throws. That's what kept the UCLA in it as much as long as they did. But the thing, and he has 20, he had 20 points in the NCAA game for the 10th time in his career. He actually becomes the first player to ever with a double-digit 20-point games in the history of the tournament. You saw all the history of that, but it was one of those days where, yes, you want to give Gonzaga all the credit in the world for catching up. This is their sixth, time catching up from season from 10 plus down. But at the same time, though, they could easily lost that game, and through UCLA didn't have a great second half. They had like 19 points at one point, so that's not going to win you a lot of games. And of course, yeah, you give Gonzaga all the credit, but UCLA lost that game as much as Gonzaga won it.
Just a couple more statistics that jumped out at me watching this game last night. Total turnovers: Gonzaga had 16, UCLA had 6. Of course, Gonzaga, most of that came in the first half, where, like you said, UCLA had that 13-point advantage going into the locker room. But in the rebounding department, Gonzaga just doubled UCLA in the rebounding advantage of 50-26. Of course, Gonzaga turned up their defense in the second half, which led to, you mentioned, nearly 12 minutes with UCLA without scoring until the very end of the game, even though UCLA took the lead. But Gonzaga, they still credit to them, Lakina, for winning the game, but they got away with, no pun intended, murder last night. And Lakina, outside of Tiger Campbell and of course Vasquez, which I think this is it for him. I think we'll see him in the next level in the NBA. Who else was going to step up in the scoring department last night, besides the guy that hit the shot to let them go ahead? Because I thought he was the best player on the floor for UCLA in that second half when they were going through that long drought.
Yeah, I think Bailey you're talking about. He was the one that that kind of he kept UCLA in as much as he could. Amari Bailey, but he's actually a Chicago kid actually. So
shouts out to him.
Yeah, so he kind of kept UCLA in it for as much. That's probably why they didn't pull away. Like I said, Timmy missed a couple of free throws that kind of that could have put the game away from Gonzaga. But at the same time, though, you have to UCLA gave that game away. Like they had multiple chances to kind of put it away. They did not. They actually had a couple of chances to try to maybe perhaps that Strother shot at me that he shot from the logo. And look, I remember him hitting that same shot during a game against BYU earlier in conference play. I know people want to compare it to the Chris Jenkins play, but let's remember, no one guard the inbounds. At least somebody guard the Arcidiacono's inbounds pass in that 2017 national championship game. But on the flip side, UCLA decided not to guard the inbound pass, which I thought was a little bit kind of off-putting there. But yeah, it's just like one of those days where this is Mick Cronin. This is one of those games where he's probably gonna have nightmares about this one, because I think they're 6-2 now. Gonzaga is against UCLA in tournament. Well, actually, all overall, but also I think they're 1-2 the last 3. Of course, we saw that Jalen Suggs 3 that they hit in the semifinal a few years ago during the pandemic. So yeah, the height of the pandemic. So yeah, I mean, it was just like I said, it seemed a little off-putting, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Speaking of that last play of the game, Lakina, I was surprised that Gonzaga wasn't then guard the inbounds pass, which was, I believe, was Vasquez for that last second shot that Tiger Campbell did get off, even though he didn't make it. I was surprised that Gonzaga chose not to do that, because remember, UCLA did not have any timeouts remaining.
No, they didn't, and they still have about 7. Yeah, it's a little over 7 seconds to work with, and it's interesting to me that it was kind of like, wow, really? That
it was 1.2 on the clock.
Yeah, but no. When I'm talking about Strother hit that game, it was still about over 7 seconds. Like they probably could have. No, they didn't have a timeout, but yeah, they could have set up a little bit of a better shot. I mean, Campbell was able to set up, but yeah, I'm surprised they didn't. They didn't foul him, but luckily for Gonzaga, didn't go in. So we'll see. It was a great game, but yeah, it was more about some weirdness that happened after during those last few minutes, but. Going back to staying in the going back to actually to the East region, the first game of that game, that was probably the game of the tournament. Kansas State going back to the Elite.
Crazy faith. Shout out to head coach Jerome Tang of Kansas State. I love that guy. I really do.
He's terrific. 98-93 win over Michigan State in overtime, which was a thriller. It was back and forth. Michigan State was
Mhm.
up for a little bit early on. Then K-State, you had a little bit of run. Then Michigan State came back. It was sort of definitely back and forth from start to finish. And Marquise Newell, and if you guys haven't heard of the name, he's all Big 12. He's a fifth-year senior on that team. He's one of the lone holdovers when Jerome Tang, took over. Probably had one of the best probably one of the best stats of the tournament so far, other than the Timmy set that we talked about yesterday. He had 20 points and 19 assists. That's the most assists someone has had in the tournament since assists became a stat back in '84. He actually passes
Mhm.
Mark Waite, who had 18 assists in '87 semifinals. He also joins because a fifth player with at least 15 points and 15 assists in a tournament game since assists became a stat. Of course, in '84, he joins John Morant, Earl Watson, Sam Crawford, and Keith Smart. Not a bad list there to join. But it was other guys that stepped up. I mean, Keontae Johnson stepped up. He had 22 points.
What a
So
great story from him. He collapsed on the court a few years ago. He was with Florida. No one thought he would be able to make it back as far as playing basketball. He's taking advantage of his opportunities, and I'm glad that young man's rewarded in a positive light.
yeah, a great story. If you guys haven't, checked out, Tang actually recruited him because he dealt with, players who had similar situations when he was at Baylor. So that's how he was able to
Hmm.
get there. Also, Ismail Masood had a couple of big shots late to kind of put the game away for K State, and of course, Noel being a show of the New York guys. Tyson Walker had 16 points in losing effort. Of course, you guys remember, go back a couple of days. He gave he hooked up coaches with some pizza from great New York City pizza place. So you guys did get check that out from a couple of days ago. Yeah, but going back to the game, I mean, this was a great performance by K State. I mean, they stuck with Michigan State. Michigan State, they made their shots, to kind of force overtime, but they kind of let them down late in the game. So in overtime. So yeah, that was just a tough loss for Michigan State, but yeah, a great win for K State.
Yeah, we finally got to see 90 points, even though it took overtime. Like, it was a great thing to see. We saw a 90s, early 2000s NBA game with some scoring, so I was happy to see that. But don't forget, AJ Hoggard had 25 for Michigan State. He really kept them in the game, especially in overtime as well. Total turnovers for the game, there were 18. 13 of them were by Michigan State, and especially in that overtime. That's I thought was one of the key factors for Kansas State holding on to win that game. And the rebounding, Michigan State had a six rebound plus six advantage in the rebounding department. But I noticed that Kansas State, they got hot from the outside, especially late in regulation, but they were penetrating inside. They took something off of the Michigan's interior defense, and that's what you like to see, especially at this time. You one of the elements that you got to have to win in the tournament.
Yeah, they basically defensive stops. Of course, Noel had a big steal against.
Hmm.
I think that was Walker. It might have been Hoggard who had that ball, but yeah, who led the way with 25 points for Sparty. But yeah, it was definitely like one of those great games, from start to finish. Like I said, Newell, a bad ankle and all. Remember, he twisted his ankle pretty badly in the middle of that second half. So the fact that he was able to come back and have the great performance that he had, I mean, it's just amazing. So now sticking to the East region, we'll do this again before we go to break. But Florida Atlanta going to the Elite Eight for the first time. Actually, they're the fourth team since the field expanded in '85 to reach the Elite Eight after entering the year with no NCAA tournament games. They it wasn't a great game for Tennessee. I mean, I think there's a battle out who had the worst second half, Tennessee
Yeah,
or UCLA.
honestly,
There was a
Tennessee had the
little
worst.
yeah, that was like, yeah, but but I mean, they couldn't score. I mean, that was like their problem. I mean, I know there was I know there's a flavor foul called on one of their guys, but unfortunately, you go 6 from 23 from 3-point range. That's not going to get it done. Also, too, you only scored you only shot like 33% from the field. That's not going to do it for you either. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is unfortunate for the Volunteers. They had a nice year, playing in the SEC, but playing against a team like Florida Atlantic, where you have all the confidence in the world, these types of things happen also with Tennessee. This is not going to win you ball games. You shoot 33% overall, 26 from three. That's going to do it in terms of lack of scoring. So
Mhm.
as you mentioned, they couldn't shoot the ball well. Florida Atlantic barely made it with over 42% shooting, 29 from three, but They really didn't need the 3-point shot. I guarantee you they'll need it against their next opponent, which we'll get to on the other side of this break. But Tennessee, especially in the last 5 minutes that I was able to catch, they couldn't score a lick. I'm not trying to overstate the obvious, but they really found this. They picked a struggle, and it was not scoring the basketball, especially inside.
Yeah, the struggle was definitely there for Tennessee. Yeah, Janelle Davis had 15 points. I mean, who's their leading scorer for the Owls? I mean, look, it was just, you know, it's like I'm flabbergasted. This game kind of like it left me flabbergasted because it was just it's not a good game. And I know we got up for about 5 in the second half, but like you said, they got cold and such. Look, give Dusty May and his guys credit. I mean, no one thought that Florida Atlantic would be able to get to the tournament. They were picked to win win Conference USA, but no one thought that they would actually be this close to. It's going to be between Florida Atlantic and K-State for the Final Four in the East region. I mean, it's just like
no one predicted that. That's why we love March Madness. And real quick before we break for the bottom of the hour, if you Memphis' head coach Penny Hardaway, you kicking yourself in the tail right now because it should have been them since they lost to Florida Atlantic in the opening round.
Well, yeah, I know Penny Hardaway. I know a lot of Memphis fans are still smarting over that loss, but I don't know, but. It'll be interesting though. Let's see what happens. But yeah, we'll preview that game. Of course, we'll actually preview tonight's game. Of course, we'll also recap the other game from last night. It was totally one side. That's why we're saving that game for last. But we'll preview the other games tonight in the Midwest and the South region. Of course, tomorrow's Elite Eight games, and also some NBA too as well. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We'll have more Hoops Talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils too.
These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver. I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Sorry. Welcome back to Second City Sports on this Friday, Fun Friday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can hit up yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80, SIDKID80.
You find that Kim again on the Twitter and the Kim's go again the IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you want to hit us up in the comments section, you can do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. Before we get into our NBA discussion for this break, for this half hour, I should say, we'll give you our picks for tonight's ball games as the round of 16 will wrap up in the NCAA tournament. As Lakina mentioned before the break, we have one more game to review. This is not much of a review, but in the other regional game last night, it was number 4 UConn defeating number 8 Arkansas 88-65.
Sorry. We're having some troubles with Sid's Wi-Fi here. So yeah, we'll talk about the Arkansas UConn game. Like I said, there's not much to talk about. I mean, UConn just hammered Arkansas from jump, and just dominated by the Huskies from UConn. And Jordan Hawkins had 24 points and
Okay, I know Lakina's having some technical difficulty issues right now. Hopefully, we can get it back in a few minutes as we continue here on Second City Sports on the Friday Fun Friday edition. I'm Sid the Kid as we reviewed the last game that took place last night in Madison Square Garden. It was UConn over Arkansas 88-65. And watching some of those highlights, Lakina, are you back with us?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. We got kicked out both got kicked out for some reason.
Crazy. But speaking of getting kicked out, Arkansas got kicked out last night. They couldn't make the shot. UConn dominated inside early and often. I thought that was a major difference in the game. Anthony Black for Arkansas led the Razorbacks with 20 points. Jordan Hawkins led UConn with 24. Like I said, Lakina, the inside play for UConn was tremendous. The defense from Arkansas was poor, especially from the interior, and UConn took full advantage of that last night.
Yeah, it's just sort of our buddy Adama Sanogo had 18 points, and it was just one of those things where he had they just really Arkansas just really didn't have an answer for them. I mean, they started hitting their threes. I'm talking about UConn. Look, when UConn's hitting their shots, they're tough to beat, and with their defense. We know how Danny Hurley, we know how they're Hurleys. His dad taught him that, rough and tumble, inside and outside. Yeah. And we're seeing that too. Finally, it's kind of starting to come to fruition for UConn, and they just dominated Arkansas, and they just didn't have an answer for them. They go pretty deep, UConn, so they can wear you out with their depth as well. So just a clinic for Connecticut. They're back in the Elite Eight for the first time since 2014. Remember that team, Kimba and the gang, as they call it. That was a team that won the national championship. So
yeah, before he had bad knees in the NBA, which is sad, but that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother topic. But yeah, you said it. But the nice one by UConn, they'll face Gonzaga in the West Regional Final. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's quickly go to these tonight's games. You got San Diego. These are in the West and the Midwest and the South region. And of course, the first game up this will be on TBS and CBS. So this is the first game on TBS in the South region. You got San Diego State and Alabama in excuse me at the KFC Yum Center in this will be interesting because I think it's all about the tone. I mean, we know San Diego State and their defense, can kind of, sort of like wear you out. We know Alabama, not really more of a finesse, but they're more kind of like, outside, inside, and angles. So what do you think the key is for this game?
One, for San Diego State, what type of defense they're going to have to stop Brandon Miller, who's supposed to be the number 2 prospect coming for this NBA draft this summer. He of course, he's the big star for Alabama. What type of defense are they going to have on him, or they're just going to let him go loose and shut down some of the other guys? I want to see what the defensive strategy is against Mr. Miller tonight. And on the flip side for Alabama, we know they are led by Brandon Miller, but who else is going to step up?
That's going to be the key here. And it should be a good one here in the Midwest region. And I'm looking forward to this one. This should be a fun one down at the T-Mobile Center. Houston and number 5, Houston and number 1, number 5, Miami, number 1, Houston, I should say. Say that 5 times, guys. Isaiah Wong is probably one of the best players you guys have never heard of. He's all ACC. Of course, you got Marcus Sasser, and then the Cougars. So this is going to be one of those, 2 different styles. It's really going to be like, between, which team could get their style to be the more prevalent. That's going to be the key for this one.
Yeah, don't forget about Mr. Jamal Shedd as well, so he can push the ball. Yeah, he can push the ball up the floor for the Houston Cougars. We talked about the injury history, Lakina, for the last couple of weeks on the show. I'm talking about Houston, but they've survived it so far. I think they're gonna get a surprise wake-up call tonight from the Hurricanes. I think the Hurricanes will kind of keep it close, but Houston should pull it out at the end. Houston's favored by 7.5. I don't know if they will cover that. It doesn't matter. I think Houston's going to go away with this ball game, but I think Miami is going to keep it just close enough that they can hang around at the end. But I expect Houston to pull it out. It's just that speed for the Cougars, especially in their backcourt, is too. I think it would be too much for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting too. But yeah, no, the second game in the South, you got. I don't think anybody had this as a Sweet 16 matchup. You have number 15 Princeton against number 6 Creighton. I mean, could this be like first to 50? I guess win this one because these two teams are totally.
If that's the case, that's Princeton style.
Yeah, I mean, and we know that Creighton is one of those teams. They're very streaky. When they hit their shots, they're tough to beat, but when they're not, they go ice cold. So it's gonna be different between which style comes out tonight.
Yeah, and Creighton, as you mentioned, they shoot the ball well from the outside, and they shoot it well, especially from 3. In Princeton, they cannot shoot the ball well from either range, 2 or the 3. I think Creighton could be in for a surprise wake-up call. Would not be surprised if Princeton won tonight, but as you said, Lakina, it has to be ice cold shooting for Creighton or for Princeton to win. But I think Creighton will do just enough to win.
Should be a good one here in the second game in the Midwest. You got Texas and Xavier. I'm looking forward. This could be like the game of the. This could be like first to 90 because both these teams can.
I got Xavier for that. I really do.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look, Jack Nunn can hit the 3. Basically, I think he's all Big East. Sully Bohm, can also be dominant. That floor general. So those two guys, that tandem could be a really solid. But look, Texas, look. Marcus Carr, look, that's a senior-laden squad too. I mean, both these teams are veterans, so it's going to be interesting to see like who disposes the will early. I mean, Timmy Allen, can dominate on the inside too. And look, it's going to be interesting to see because I think this is going to be like, look, no one thought Texas would get this far, especially with what happened what happened earlier this year. But the fact that Ronnie Terry, he's making it very hard for the Texas people to not consider him to get the job permanently. So. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, shout out to our buddy Lamont Scott checking in via Facebook. Shout out to you, Lamont. How you doing? He says he's rooting for Princeton, but the Creighton Blue Jays will win. I kind of have that same prediction, even though, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Princeton won, but the Blue Jays will have to shoot ice cold from the outside. So going back to Xavier at Texas, like you said, I think the first to the upper 80s or lower 90s will win. I think Xavier has too much speed for Texas. I think Texas is more of an inside team, or more of an inside presence team. But Xavier can shoot it especially well from the outside. If Texas, if they can keep up, I think they have a shot. I know they're favored, but I expect Xavier to pull off this upset tonight. I don't think it will be too much of an upset, but like you said, no one expected these two teams to be at this position at this point in the season.
Well, yeah, well, they're both 2 and 3 seeds. I think some people would expect it. So this is sort of like this. This is one of the few where it's basically chalk. Yeah, San Diego State's a 5 seed, but 4 and 5. I mean, that you're kind of even. So it's interesting to see what happens there. Now, real quick, on tomorrow, because you got the regional finals, you got the East and the West regions. You got K-State and Florida Atlantic. Like I said, I think for me, I think these are like 2 teams that no one thought would probably get this far. If you really want to go there. And I think, I think it's all going to depend on, the style. I think, Marquise Newell, we'll see how the ankle is with him. And, we'll see if he can kind of, sort of be that floor general and such. But yeah, this should be a fun one tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that game. Kansas State all the way. Crazy Faith. Let's do it one more time. Head coach Jerome Tang, let's go. No said.
All right, in the West region, you got the 3 and the 4 seed. You got number 3 Gonzaga, number 4 UConn. I know some people will say Gonzaga because of their experience, but UConn, look, I think UConn can kind of wear it out. Look, if they can play a similar side to what Baylor did against Gonzaga a few years back in the national championship game. I mean, look, I'm sure Denny Hurley, I'm sure Jordan Hawkins and Jordan Simone and the rest of them are probably not going to be amused. I'm sure they know they're probably going to be hearing out people picking Gonzaga, so it's going to be very interesting.
I'll say this and keep this in mind, especially during the first 5-10 minutes of the game. How much energy will Gonzaga have after playing an emotional game last night?
Happened to a couple of years ago.
Right. Yeah, they trailed early. They came back. They trailed, almost gave that game away. They had to take an edge of the logo 3 for them to win it. How much energy will they have, especially to start the game? So pay attention to the first 5-10 minutes of this game. Can UConn take advantage? If they can, it's going to be a long afternoon for the Bulldogs. I'm taking Gonzaga to win, but pay attention to the first 5-10 minutes of the game for the possible fatigue factor for Gonzaga.
Look, it happened to him a couple years ago against the national championship game against Baylor.
Yeah.
Just saying, sort of the same situation. But enjoy the March Madness this weekend. We'll probably talk a little bit more later on with Christine. But actually, this is because we got some coaching changes too. But as this is Second Seed Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. We got a few more minutes left, Sid, before our buddy Jordan Lazowski joins us to talk Sox and AL Central. But let's talk a little NBA. A mixed bag for the Bulls. I mean, they split their Philly home and home. I mean, they beat Philly on the road, which I gotta say I was a little shocked by that in double overtime, I should say. I was surprised by that, but on the flip side, though, on Wednesday I was not surprised. I knew that Joel Embiid, who fouled out halfway about at the beginning of that second overtime, he was going to be in a very good mood, and neither were Philly, and they jumped on the Bulls early, and they didn't let up. And also, too, that quad strain, that right cross strain hit DeMar DeRozan again. So he might not be back for a couple of games, but they're still in that 11th spot. And they're still within that for that 8th spot, too. I know that's shocking to some Bulls fans, but
yeah,
that's still the case. So what do you think about the Bulls' performance this week?
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't surprised. As we said on our show on Monday, they needed a split, and that's exactly what they got. But quickly in Monday's victory at Philadelphia, Derrick Jones Jr. playing the 5 spot. He got the key block in that second overtime.
Who knew?
Yeah, I know. Who knew? He got the key block in the second overtime to clinch it for the Bulls. As another thing that I'm going to say right now, I like the way Zach LaVine is playing. I know he had 16 points the other night, but the game was way out of reach. But you start to see more confidence in Zach LaVine's knee, and you start to see more confidence in himself because, as I said before, the last 2-3 weeks, he's being more aggressive, taking the ball to the basket. He doesn't have the ball hog, and that's helping out DeRozan. It's helping out Vucevic. It's helping the rest of the guys on the floor. Now, coming off the bench, Kobe White, I know he didn't have he had a great game. He was the only person that had a great game on Wednesday. He had 19 points, but he's been playing very well, giving the Bulls that energy off the bench, which this team needs. But Ayo Dosunmu, I'm still rooting for him, but he's been kind of up and down lately, and I don't like the way he's been playing right now. I don't know what it is from him, but you're still going to need something from him between now and the end of the season. But it all starts with Zach LaVine being aggressive, taking the ball to the basket, not always settling for that 18-foot jumper.
Yeah, and we're seeing kind of more and more. Look, nobody had their best game, in that game. Of course, like I said, the game, they were up I think Philly was up by 20, halfway through the first quarter. So there was really nothing that that the Bulls could do. I know some people want to bitch and moan about the Bulls again. I'm talking about you, Mark Silverman. Love you, but your Bulls takes have been a little bit on the pushing it to sort of like hot takey side lately, but that's a whole different thing. But yeah, but let's go back because we don't have a lot of time. But let's go back to the rest of the NBA. Going back real quick, a big win for the Clippers, 127-105, as PG is out with a knee injury. It's not serious, there's no ligament damage, but he'll be really reevaluated in about 3 weeks. But Kawhi had 32 points to lead the way there, and this is the win that they desperately need, especially with PG going to be out for the next few weeks.
Yeah, so as I said to someone the other day, it's going to be about Kawhi Leonard, and it's going to be about Russell Westbrook from here on out until the end of the regular season. Because, like you said, the injury to Paul George, I saw that play the other night. It looked nice. I thought it was a broken leg. Thank goodness it wasn't. So it looks like Paul George is going to be okay. But Nicholas Batum stepped up last night, hit a couple big shots. But pay attention to this for the Clippers. Another key guy who's out right now, Norman Powell, who's been given a great minutes this season. They better get him back healthy before the playoffs. If they don't, it's going to be a short postseason stay for the Clippers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's not a good thing if you're the Clippers. Of course, the Magic upset the Knicks 111, I should say 106.
I guess they're not going to the Eastern Conference Finals, huh?
Yeah, I guess. Look, we try to warn folks. We said, look, I mean, they've done things, but Paolo Pacquiao had 21 and a nice balanced scoring there. Now going back to Tuesday's matchups, the Lakers, your buddy Austin Reeves again, Sid, 122-111 over the Suns. Got a nice win for them, of course. No KD for Phoenix, and of course no LeBron for the Lakers. But like I said, it was Austin Reeves. He had 25. And he's the first undrafted player to average 30 points over a 2-game span. So, it's just like one of those things where they're kind of like they're sort of seesawing back and forth who was going to get that middle of the pack seat. But yeah, this was a nice win for the Lakers.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch the second half of that game the other night on Tuesday. You mentioned Austin Reeves had 35 points. Jared Vanderbilt had a nice alley-oop left-handed dunk at the end. That one to steal it away for the Lakers. He had a nice game. Dennis Schroeder chipped in nicely, but Anthony Davis, he's healthy, Lakina. He didn't get hurt yet, thank goodness. If you're a Lakers fan, you need him to dominate, especially from the inside. And he's been playing well ever since his return from injury, despite that mess up last Friday night against Dallas. I know we'll get to them. I'm talking about Dallas in a minute, but Anthony Davis had a nice game. So long as those role players continue to play well, I think the Lakers, just like the Bulls, will sneak into that play-in tournament. And keep your eye on D'Angelo Russell. Ever since he returned from the injured list, he's been playing very well.
Very well indeed. Let's talk about that Dallas Golden State game. Golden State got a road win, snapping that long losing streak on the road. But apparently, I guess I didn't watch it, but I heard about what happened. I guess there was some mix up with the refs, and the refs pointed the Mavs direction, but then he changed his mind and went to Golden State's direction. And
the PA guy said it was Dallas ball. It was crazy. Then Mark Cuban got up and started yelling and screaming at the scores table. Then he started tweeting again.
About filing
That's old school Mark Cuban from 20 years ago.
Yeah, you saw about we're gonna file a protest. I'm like, wait, well, the Bulls could have done that a couple of times. I know the Cavs could have done a couple. But yeah, I mean, what can you do? I mean, it's a little bit nutty. The referee has been sort of weird this year, but we will rehash that.
Speaking of refereeing, real quick, Lakina, did you hear about the story about Fred VanVleet, about the referee who teed him up a few weeks ago when the Toronto played the Clippers? And of course, and then of course, VanVleet criticized him after the game and got fined $30,000. Now that referee is no longer be part of a crew chief. Ahead of working games from now to the end of the regular season. And so many people are asking, even though technically Fred VanVleet broke the rule of criticizing the officials publicly, do you think the league should rescind his $30,000 fine?
Could it have? I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, if you're well, I will usually see if VanVleet decides to appeal it, but yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if he does appeal it. So they ended up actually getting rid of the ref for the rest of the year. So they must have thought he was right. So I don't know.
Even though the NBA won't admit that publicly,
they'll never say it. But yeah, Miami beat the Knicks. Wasn't a good week for the Knicks. 127-120. Also, shout out to Eric Spoelstra, who got his 1,000th win. He's always a pretty exclusive club. Of course, his mentor Pat Riley, of course, has over 1,000 wins as well. So very underrated coach. I mean, we'll see if Miami can get together. They've been coming up and down the last few weeks. Real quick, a couple other scores of note. OKC got them the first time. Talking about the Clippers. I'm not repeating myself. They did play twice this week. Don't ask me.
Oh yeah, what happened? Real quick, what happened to that last play of the game with Kawhi Leonard? Couldn't the Clippers at least call a pick and roll there?
Yeah, that was. I don't know what was.
I found that last play. This is from Tuesday night's game, by the way. I found that to be weird. I forgot who was guarding Kawhi. He played very well, very good defense on Kawhi. But could you at least set Nicholas Batum apart, George out for a screen to free him?
That was a little bit weird. Yeah, that was a little bit weird that how that play was set up. It was kind of like they only needed. They tried to take a three. He tried to take a three, but they only needed a basket. So I don't know what happened there, but it's a little bit nice. Golden State, they won 2 in a row on the road. Yay! Of course, they beat Houston there on Monday. Memphis, of course, got Dallas 112, 108. Of course, that was before Luka came back. And so, like I said, the Knicks lost to the T-Wolves. Again, like I said, it wasn't a good week for the Knicks. They lost to them. Also, shout out to Brandon Ingram, who got his first triple-double a couple of days ago. So that was, first career triple-double. So that was a really, a couple of days ago, that was a really nice moment there. I know they were all celebrating, with him. He did that against the San Antonio Spurs. Got 32 points, I think like 10 boards and like 12 assists. Like I said, his first career triple-double. So congrats to him.
Yeah, correct to him. All right, again, before we close up shop for the top of the hour, before we get to our White Sox talk, we'll go through the schedule for this weekend's games from around the National Basketball Association. Of course, tonight the Bulls will start their West Coast road trip. They'll play at the Portland Trail Blazers. That's tonight at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. You can watch that game locally on NBC Sports Chicago. For the rest of you NBA League Pass, I think for you those of you in Portland area, that's Root Sports, if I'm not mistaken. So that's Kevin Calabro, a longtime Seattle Sonics announcer. He does a great job doing the Portland Trail Blazers games. For the rest of the schedule for today, looks like this. The Pacers at the Celtics at 6 o'clock. That's the first game of the NBA TV doubleheader. The Spurs and Wizards at 6 o'clock. 6:30, Detroit at Toronto. At 7 o'clock, the Rockets at the Grizzlies. Ja Morant returned the other night, and the Memphis is back on track. Hopefully, Ja Morant can get back on track outside of basketball. We'll leave it at that. At 7:30, Charlotte at Dallas. Dallas needs to get it together. At 8 o'clock, Milwaukee at Utah. The Jazz are still trying to climb back into that play-in tournament in the Western Conference. The second game of the NBA TV doubleheader tonight, Philadelphia at Golden State at 9 o'clock. And also wrapping up the Friday night schedule, the Phoenix Suns at the Sacramento Kings. That should be a fun one. Get your track shoes ready for that. And at 9:30, we have OKC staying in LA, but taking on the Lakers tonight at 9:30.
That Phoenix Sacramento game should be interesting. We're going into tomorrow's games. Saturday, you got Indiana and Atlanta at 4 o'clock. I know a lot of Bulls fans are interested in that game. Brooklyn and Miami at 7 o'clock. Milwaukee and Denver, that's at 8 on NBA TV. That should be a fun one. Maybe NBA Finals preview. We'll see. Philadelphia and Phoenix. Phoenix. Both teams are going to come off a back-to-back, so we'll see how both teams look tomorrow. Utah and Sacramento, that should be a fun one. Again, back-to-back, so again, we'll see how both these teams mesh up here. And it'll be the Pelicans and the Clippers. That should be a fun one at me.
Okay, going to Sunday afternoon schedule. Of course, the Bulls will continue their West Coast road trip. They'll visit LA to take on the Lakers. So that's at 2:30 local time. Chicago Central Standard Time. Of course, at high noon, Dallas at Charlotte as the Mavericks take on the Hornets. 5 o'clock on NBA TV, we have Memphis at Atlanta, Ja Morant versus Trae Young. That should be a fun one. Also at 5 o'clock, San Antonio at Boston, Houston at Cleveland, and the Brooklyn Nets at the Orlando Magic.
I'll take over from here. Brooklyn and Orlando at 5. Wizards and Toronto at 5. OKC and Portland at 6. And the second game of the NBA TV doubleheader is Minnesota and Golden State. That should be a fun one. And Karl-Anthony Towns is back, had a solid game in his return a few days ago, I should say. So, but also too, if you want to let folks know that ESPN is going to be doing the women's tournament, so that's why hence the NBA TV games, no ESPN games this weekend. So enjoy the weekend in the NBA.
All right, and that's your schedule for the weekend action in the NBA. Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports continues with our good buddy Jordan Lazowski from Sox on 35th and our good buddy Miss Christine the Queen Manika. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You're listening to Second City Sports exclusively right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on this fun Friday fun edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid Deslakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan again on IG.
We have exactly 55 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, especially for our next guest, you can always hit us up in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. Lakina, let's not waste any time. We're 6 days away from baseball opening up the 2023 season. And to help us preview the 2023 Chicago White Sox, let's bring in our good buddy from Sox on 35th.com and the Sox on 35th podcast, which is back in full effect. Here's our buddy, Mr. Jordan Lazowski. Jordan, yay! Happy Baseball New Year. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure talking with you two.
I gotcha.
Yep, it's great having you again. Before we start previewing the White Sox, Jordan, of course, the World Baseball Classic, which I said it was a big waste of time, but it seems like a few White Sox members of the White Sox didn't think so. Of course, Tim Barrington, Kendall Braveman, and Lance Lynn representing the United States. Also, others involved from the White Sox were Luis Robert and Yohan Moncada. How do you think that the experience that those players had playing in that tournament will help the White Sox to start off the season?
Oh, personally, I love the World Baseball Classic. I know not everybody does. I know that's a contentious topic, but I think it's more fun for the players, especially. It's a little bit more of a competitive aspect to it than those spring training games, where you're out by the fourth inning. You're kind of there. You're just kind of getting your reps. I think the competition aspect is good for the players and will be good for the White Sox moving forward too. I think some of the guys who are there getting those reps and made it all the way to either the semifinals or the finals really got to experience that competitive nature early on in the season and makes them hungry, hopefully, throughout the season.
Yeah, I think Tim Anderson is on a mission because he had a really great showing from at the WBC. I didn't watch it, but from what seeing the tweets and the highlights and such, and do you think if he stays healthy, do you think he kind of be kind of right there in the MVP discussion?
Of course, I think he's the type of player where, again, you can expect potentially a batting title from him when he's out there, and I think that type of player, MVP, all kinds of accolades can always come with it. I'm excited to see what Anderson does this year. I think playing with a chip on his shoulder will be helpful. I think that's kind of the theme for most of these guys is playing with the chip on their shoulder, playing with something to prove, and hopefully good things come from that.
Let's start with the starting rotation. Jordan, of course, is they're led by Dylan Cease. He'll get the start 6 days from now as the Sox will open up the season at Houston. Lance Lynn will be your second starter, followed by Lucas Giolito, Michael Kopech, and Mike Clevenger. Thank goodness that controversy is behind the White Sox. I'm talking about Mike Clevenger, but who do you think has the most pressure in that White Sox starting staff this year? Michael Kopech or Lucas Giolito, who's fighting for a contract?
Personal pressure is probably Lucas Giolito because, like you said, he's fighting for that contract. He's trying to prove something. He's trying to prove that last year was a fluke and that he's a different pitcher and he's a better pitcher. So personal adversity, personal struggle to kind of deal with and kind of something to prove is Giolito. Now, for Kopech, that's a little bit more proving that you belong here, proving that you belong in a rotation, proving that you can stay healthy and in a rotation. I think the pressure is absolutely on to be that 4 or 5 guy and hopefully a lot more in his future. And I think, the longer he kind of is further out from Tommy John and taking the COVID season off, it's time for him to put a full season together with a lot to prove. So I think on the field is probably Kopech because it stands that he still hasn't really proven he's a starter. Giolito has. And I think we all think Kopech is a starter, but it's time for him to be able to prove that he can handle that role for a full 162.
Yeah, what about on the relieving side? Of course, hopefully Liam Hendricks is he's feeling a lot better, and of course he's doing well. So we won't know for sure when he'll be back. Will it be like guys like Kendall Graveman or who they picked up, or will it be like Joe Kelly? Who's going to be kind of like that reliever by committee? I guess Pedro Grifol is going to do while Liam Hendricks is out.
Yeah, it'll probably depend on matchups. If you're going closer by committee, it's always a risky thing to do, especially when you're a playoff team. But it's going to depend on matchups, who's available that day, who's feeling good that day, and what the situation calls for. I think when you talk about pressure in a bullpen, every single guy who's a high leverage guy, Ronaldo Lopez, Joe Kelly, Kendall Graveman, Aaron Bummer, those guys all have pressure on them because they are the ones who have to step up and fill the void of Liam Hendricks until he can return. And for some of them, it'll be the first time they're pitching in a closer role. For others, it's a return to that role. But I think all of them kind of have to share some pressure of, you guys are the next ones up. It's next man up in this situation. And hopefully Liam's back sooner than later. But if he's not, these guys are the ones carrying the load for the majority of the season.
We're talking White Sox with our buddy Jordan Lazowski from Sox on 35th right here on the Friday edition of Second City Sports. Live in living color on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out with you. Jordan, let's go to the outfielders. Of course, we'll start with a rookie, hopefully a rookie sensation this year. Oscar Colas, he was tearing the cover off the ball so far in spring training. His defense still needs to be worked on a little bit, even though he has had his moments. What do you expect out of him as he looks like he's going to be named the starting right fielder?
Yeah, he's bound to be the starting right fielder, and I think bound to have a really good season. I think, you can't read too much into spring training statistics. But at the same time, the stories that are coming out on him, the way the staff in particular talks about him, I think it's fair to be very high on him, be very positive about what's to come with Oscar Colas. I think, to put expectations too high is to repeat past errors we've done as Sox fans, especially when players first come up. There's going to be some growing pains, and Colas will probably be no stranger to struggles here and there. They'll probably platoon him and only have him hit against right-handed pitching early on to sort of ease him into the major leagues. But that being said, it's a talented kid who's proven that he really doesn't need AAA all that much. Like AA will probably be enough for him. And I think that says a lot about him and what can be expected. The expectation should be high when players do that. Not many do.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at I'm looking at the roster for the field. I mean, you know how I feel about Eloy, and I know he got a little banged up in those last couple of spring training games. Jordan, are we going to be seeing more? I feel like I've been asking this every time you're on with us. Are we going to see Eloy in the outfield? Is Grafol going to make sure he's not playing? In the outfield, going to be DH like he should be? Please tell me, please.
I think the goals from what Grafol has said, I think the goal is to have him out there maybe 2 times a week, which is a far cry from 6 or 7. So
I'll take
there's
that.
at least that positive. And I think he's made it clear that he doesn't want Eloy to just be a DH. He wants him to train as though he's going to be an outfielder as well. And I think that's the right message to send to a young 20-something-year-old player. At the same time, read between the lines and understand that he doesn't really want Eloy out there all the time. He's probably the team's quote unquote 4th outfielder, just because if they're in a pinch, he can play the outfield. But on a day-to-day basis, maybe 2 times a week is probably what to expect as fans. And I think, it's going to have to be that way. You don't want to pigeonhole someone at his age necessarily into that role. Especially because there's so much athleticism and there's so much training that goes into being an outfielder that naturally helps you over the course of a season.
I'll take 0, but I know I'm not going to get that, so I'll just have to live with it.
I think we all would. I think we all would take 0, maybe 1, truthfully.
Right.
He's just a valuable player, and you want to keep him on the field.
Like I said, him and Gavin Sheets should split time at DH depending on the matchups. We'll see if new manager Pedro Grafol goes by that plan as the season goes along. I want to ask you about catcher. Of course, Yasmani Grandal, he's been working with the Blackhawks goalie coach to rehab and retrain himself throughout the all season. Of course, Seby Zavala is your backup catcher. How much we're going to get out of both catchers this year?
I think Zavala might end up playing a little bit more than anticipated. I think if you get 100 to 110 games behind the plate of Grandal, and then maybe he DHs 30 games, leaves about 50, 60 games overall for Zavala to catch just behind the plate. And I think last year he proved he can handle that. He can handle being a bat at the major league level, which I found surprising. I thought he was going to be someone that was really just going to be a glove-only type player. And I think he kind of proves he belongs at the plate as well. I don't know what they do long-term necessarily with the catcher position. I know Grandal's contract ends after the season. But you assume you get a healthy Grandal, you want him in the lineup for 140 games. And if that means you have to DH him for 30 or 40 of them to make sure you get to that number, you have a good enough player in Seby Zavala behind the plate as his backup to feel okay with moving Grandal to DH every once in a while.
Elvis Andrus is back for the White Sox this year. Of course, he came in late in the season. It was actually a spark and kind of kept the Sox in it for a little while. Do you think we're going to see some of the same numbers we saw him play do well in spring training?
I wouldn't expect the numbers he put up when he was with the White Sox. Personally, I think that was so far out of his career norms that I don't think we can necessarily expect that from him. But at the same time, to expect someone to hit 10 to 15 home runs and have a decent average in OPS, at second base, it really doesn't matter all that much. Second base is a weaker position offensively around the league. And with the shift changes and the shift limitations, it becomes more of a defense first position. That's why they signed someone with such good range like Andrus. So maybe he probably doesn't put up the same numbers as he did last year with the White Sox, but if you get average to above average-ish numbers from him, but solid defense at the same time, I think you take that as a win, especially when you consider he's pretty highly regarded in the clubhouse as a leader.
Now let's go over to the continue with the infield. Of course, your starting third baseman is Johan Manika, which I expect him to have a big year if he stays healthy. I think confidence has been his issue over the last couple of years, but Jake Burger's been making some noise in spring training, but that defense still needs to be worked on. And let's be honest, he carried the White Sox in late May into early June last year as they were going through their struggles offensively. Is it safe to assume that he's going to start the year at least in the minor leagues?
I don't think so yet. I don't think it's safe to assume that. If you want to reward guys for spring trainings, like it's the reason we're talking about guys like Hanser Alberto potentially making this roster because he's had a really good spring training. You kind of have to do the same for Jake Burger, for someone who's had a really, really good spring, who's added a little bit of flexibility by playing both corner and field positions. I'm not sure it's a lock that he's off the roster yet. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he's off because between him, Gavin Sheets, and those types of players, it's hard to fit them all on the roster. But at the same time, if you're talking about spring training performances and trying to reward guys for having good springs, you can find a spot for him on the opening day roster. You might have to get creative with a few things, but you can find a spot for him pretty easily. Especially when you're facing tough left-handers like Framber Valdez on opening day. He hits left-handers pretty well. It's a feasible way to find him in the lineup, especially if you platoon Oscar Colas early in the season.
Now let's talk about the rest of the AL Central for a second, guys. And of course, Cleveland won it last year, and they've made some changes. They've added some guys. It'll be interesting to see what Minnesota will see. How they do. Could Detroit perhaps maybe challenge for maybe one of the wild card spots? KC is KC. So what do you think about the rest of the division? Where do you think the Sox stack up?
It's still very winnable. It's the same conversation we had last year. It's a very winnable division. Detroit is a little bit of a mess right now with their change in front office. So they're in a little bit of a pickle. Same thing in Kansas City. They had quite a bit of turnover in their front office. They're in a little bit of a situation, but they're going to be solid. You got solid ball players there. Minnesota did good things, but for the most part, returned most of the same team as last year. Correa was huge, but he was also on the team last year who far underperformed expectations. And Cleveland, you have to decide. It's kind of like the White Sox and their injury issues. Is that a fluke? It's kind of the same thing with Cleveland. Was that sort of a little bit of a fluke? Just the way they play the game isn't always necessarily sustainable. So you put that all together, there's no juggernaut in this division. This isn't the AL East. This isn't the NL East. This is a very winnable division. You stay healthy, you find a way to win 90 games in this new formatted schedule, you're going to find yourself in a good spot at the end of the day.
Speaking of the rest of the American League, Jordan, where do you think the Sox, if they play up to their full potential, where do you see them stacking up against the Yankees? They're going to start with some key guys, including former Sox pitcher Carlos Rodon on the injury list. Of course, who the White Sox face next week is Houston. Of course, Jose Altuve will be on the shelf there. How do you see the White Sox stacking them against the American League? Because if they play to their full potential, I'm not saying that the White Sox are going to end up with the best record or they're going to beat the Yankees or the Astros, but I think they could be right in the middle of the package. Just for me, it's just for the White Sox just to get into the playoffs, because out of those other two divisions, you're in the easiest division, quote unquote, on paper in the major leagues.
Right. It's on paper, it's the most winnable division. You're not dealing with the Yankees and the Astros and the Rays and those types of teams. They probably fall in the middle of the pack there, but at the same time, this is a team that last year had World Series expectations put on them. It's relatively the same team as the one last year. It's about proving that you still belong with some of those expectations that were given to you a year ago. I know the turnover between Abreu and then replacing with Benintendi is a little bit different than White Sox fans would want, but this was still a team that was labeled World Series or bust last year. And I think it should be similar despite what the rest of the American League looks like. Because at their best, they can stack up with these guys. Are they as good? Maybe not, but rarely in the playoffs does the best team in baseball win the World Series. That's not what the World Series is meant to judge.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just, teams get hot at the right time. We've seen that
Mhm.
before. So, but I know you're a Notre Dame guy, Jordan. So I'm gonna go off baseball for a second. Of course, Mecca Shrewsbury is now the new men's basketball coach
Mhm.
at Notre Dame, and I think this is a good hire. I mean, look, he knows the area. He can recruit. You saw what he did with Penn State. Having them come out of nowhere and made to the Big Ten tournament final. So, what do you think he can do for the program? And can he get him back to kind of like at the very least respectability?
He's got a lot of work cut out for him. The roster's not in a great place right now. The state of Notre Dame men's basketball is in a little bit of a flux, but I think you've seen that what he's done with Penn State very quickly is get that sort of respectability back, and I think you start to establish a new culture, show that this is what Notre Dame men's basketball is going to be about under me and my staff. Then more players want to come on top of you're going to Notre Dame. That should still mean something at the end of the day. Again, he's got his work cut out for him, but everything I've read, everything I've seen is very positive, and I think he's someone that has taken a team that it's in a little bit of a flux and has shown improvement like a Penn State. And I think it's very, very likely he's able to do it again here. I'm very excited to see what he gets to do.
We heading down the home stretch with our guy, Jordan Lazowski, writer and podcast host on Sox on 35th and SoxOn35th.com. Right here on Second City Sports on Chicago. Silly King here with you, or live and in living color. Jordan, let's go back to the White Sox and Andrew Benintendi, who was the big free agent signing over the winter. Of course, he was brought here to bring the glove in left field, but what do you expect from his bat? Of course, we've seen throughout his career, he could put up some good numbers in other years. Not so much. Of course, he played for Kansas City the last few years. He played with Boston early in his career. What do you expect from Mr. Benintendi in left field this year?
I think it'll be nice to see him get out of Kansas City. I think Kansas City is not a place for power.
Yeah.
No.
That is not the ballpark you want to play in if you've got Pop as a left-hander. So I'm excited to see him in a ballpark that plays a lot better to left-handers with a little bit of power. I'm not going to sit here and say, 25, 30 homers, but if he can get back up to those 15, 20-ish homer type seasons that he's had or has shown he can play into, I think that would be a big positive. I think that's a big part of why the White Sox signed him. I think you can see that the ballpark in which you played has a big effect on how you play and the numbers you put up. If you can sacrifice a little bit off the average, maybe like a 275 average, to get that OPS back up and get those home runs back up, I think that would be a very big positive. I think he adds some stability to the outfield too. Long term, you can now comfortably say over the next few seasons, Luis Robert, Andrew Benintendi, Oscar Colas is your outfield. Now go focus elsewhere.
Right. That sustainability there. I think that's been the problem the last few years in that infield. So we'll just see what happens. And what about Larry Garcia? I know Sid has been very hot and cold when it comes to Larry. Is he expecting much?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We all have been kind of like hot and cold on him. Are we expecting much from him? He's 32 now. So is there anything, do we expect a lot? Is he going to be playing much? Will he be the one DHing a lot too when Vaughn and Eloy are not?
I think there's a chance he still doesn't make the roster, to be honest with you. Pedro Grifol and the staff have been very non-committal to his role. And I think that's surprising for someone who's still got 2 years on his deal. I don't think it's unfounded. I think the Sox, if you remember Jeff Keppinger, they've done something similar. They've cut someone with 2 years left on their deal before. If he ends up making the team, which I think is still probable, I think he might be given the respect to make the team and try to prove last year was a fluke of sorts for him as well. If he does make the team as a result, he probably won't play much. I think he will be the true utility guy on the field, break in case of emergency type player. And I think you saw towards the end of last season when Miguel Cairo took over for Tony La Russa, you didn't see much of Larry Garcia. And I think that is when he operates the best, is when he's deployed in specific matchups. And if they can get back to that, it means he won't play much, but maybe some of the numbers improve. But I still don't think it's a lock for him to make the roster at all.
Yeah, someone should have told Tony that around this time last year. You don't play Larry Garcia 5-6 times a week. No, but like I said, we'll leave last year alone. Now going to Dylan Cease, Jordan. Of course, he should have won 20 games last year, but with that piss poor offensive game plan and bad defense behind him, he only won, I believe, 13 or 14 games. What do you expect from Dylan Cease this year? Me personally, I think he might take maybe a slight step back, but I still expect him to be very good, barring injuries, of course. But what do you expect from Dylan Cease this year? Do you think he'll be in the Cy Young conversation again?
I'd like him to be. I think it's hard to sit and say that a player should have Cy Young expectations every year, especially when that's the first year he's done it. He had a 2.20 ERA last year. I think mid to high twos for an ERA would not be a bad season. I think it would be a little bit different from where it was this year, obviously, or excuse me, last year, obviously. But at the same time, that's a really good season. That's not maybe a top 2 in Cy Young season, but that's still top 10. That's respectable. That keeps you in the conversation. I think you look at someone like him, and it's about consistency and proving his last year wasn't a fluke in a good way. But when you look at it that way, there's a lot of expectations that come from someone who just posted a Cy Young season. Now you got to do it again, and then again, and then again. I'm excited to see what he does. I'm encouraged by how he's improved over the spring. I think it's fair to have ace-like expectations of him, so long as we don't cross the threshold into now I need Cy Young expectations, because that's when you turn into like a really good season versus a great one. Not everyone has like great seasons every year. A really good one, like a mid to high 2 ERA, that's a phenomenal season at the end of the day. It might not be winning a Cy Young, but I think that's what you can expect from him.
Okay, Jordan, last question from me. Now, the win totals we've seen, have been from like the 80 to 83 range. So where do you think the White Sox will be? Will they be at 500? Will they be a little bit over? Will they be a little bit under? Will they win a division? How many wins do you think it's going to take to win that division?
How many did it take last year? Around 87-ish or so? I think it's going to be the same thing this season. I think you win 90 games, you probably win the division. And I still think this team is good enough to win 90 games. I think in terms of like when you're talking about Vegas odds, 83.5 was a good over-under for where they were last year. I take the over every time. I think the true talent of this team is so much better that when you make changes to a coaching staff and you make a few good-ish additions, I guess we'll say. I mean, they didn't shoot for the moon, but they didn't not do anything. When you put that all together and you combine it with hopefully better health, this team's a lot better than an 81-win season. And 81 wins was worst case scenario across the board. I don't think they're going to be that bad again. Maybe it's the spring training Kool-Aid. I'm still thinking 90 wins is absolutely possible. I think the new staff, it inspires a lot of confidence in fans. But I still think 86, 87, 88 wins probably wins the division, even if they don't hit that 90 threshold.
I think looking at the schedule for the White Sox for the first 2 weeks of the season, of course, Houston's dealing with their injuries right now. I know 2 weeks from today, they'll play Pittsburgh on the road. That'll be Pittsburgh's, I believe, home opener. Of course, it's sandwiched between there. They have San Francisco in their home when we're starting next Monday. But the Sox, if everything breaks right, should get off to at least a 9-7, 10-6 start. That should be a good start, and hopefully get White Sox fans back on board. Last question for me, Jordan. We didn't ask you this the last time you were on our program, but I saw via your Twitter account that you got into some baseball coaching a little bit. Tell us about that. How did that come about?
Yes. So I coach. This is going to be my second season coaching back at my high school, Montini Catholic, out in Lombard.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
thank you.
Cool.
So I was a JV assistant coach last year. I'm a varsity assistant coach this year. So the same coaching staff is still there from when I graduated a few years back. Now it's like 8 or 9 at this point. I'm starting to get old. So the same staff is there, and they asked if I wanted to come back as a coach last year, and they asked me to be on the varsity staff this year. And it's truly, I could go on for hours about how much I love coaching and working with the kids and the staff, and it's truly, truly very exciting for me. It's something I've always wanted to do, and to do it at the place where I went to high school with the same coaches who were coaching me at the time. It's a pretty cool opportunity. I'm very, very thankful for it.
Yeah, make sure you don't fall asleep like Tony La Russa, just saying.
I'll be fine. I think I can hit that bar. It's a low bar to clear, but I think I got that one.
Well, again, congrats, Jordan.
Thank you.
That's
I
awesome.
appreciate it.
All right, Theo. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just wanted to say that we're glad to have you on our show today, Jordan. Great job.
Yay.
Keep up the great work. I know you do. Collington have the Sox on 35th podcast back. Tell us about that in about a minute or less before we spring you.
For sure. Yeah, we revamped it a little bit. We said we wanted to be more consistent. We wanted to bring on some new personalities. And most importantly, we wanted to do it our way with our style in a way that we felt proud of doing things. Took the year off, decided it was time to bring it back, time to be consistent, and time to be able to do things you can't necessarily just do in writing a blog necessarily. So we're excited about it. It's every Tuesday. We're putting them out. And we're really, really excited to get into the season and have more to talk about throughout the year.
All right, that's our good buddy Jordan Lazowski from Sox on 35th podcast at soxon35th.com. You can catch his work there. You can follow him on Twitter at JLazowski14. Once again, at JLazowski14. Jordan, as always, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Hopefully the White Sox will have a great year. You keep up the great work, and hopefully we'll have you back on again as the season goes along. Hopefully I'll catch you out at a ball game or two.
Absolutely. Thank you both for having me on. It's truly always a pleasure.
All right.
So much fun. And the continued success on the manager side, Jordan.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Stay safe.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, that's Sox on 35th's very own Mr. Jordan Lazowski. We're going to have another one of our favorite homies from right here in Chicago. She makes her return. Our girl, Christine, the Queen Manika from KXRB, will join us right after this to talk about all types of stuff. We'll talk tournament. We'll talk, you got the match now. And, of course, other stuff, too. Also, of course, White Sox. And I wonder, did she watch WBC? And we'll ask her about that, too. All that and a whole lot more coming up next. Second City Sports on Chicago. Our girl, Christine Manika, coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver. And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this Friday, Fun Friday edition. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. This is our last break for the day and our last break for the week. You want to get at us via the Twitter and the IG. You can follow yours truly at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
And if you want to hit us up via the comment section, this is your last chance to do your last, second, fourth quarter shots via the comment section. You can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will bring them up on the screen for you. And let's not waste any time. Here comes our homegirl from KXRB Radio. She's an avid White Sox fan, as many of you well know. She's from KXRB. Here comes our girl. She's still trying to get ready. She's still trying to get ready. She's ready now. So here comes our homegirl.
Okay, she's
ready. Yeah. Here comes our homegirl, Miss Christine, the Queen, Manika. What's up, Christine?
Yay. Muted? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
We got you.
Yay! Yay! I'm great. How are you?
Oh,
yeah, we're doing just fine.
Good.
Yeah, the weather's starting to break out.
No, go ahead, Sid. Sorry. Oh, well,
yeah, we love doing these Zoom broadcasts. Yeah, it's starting to hear a little echo a little bit, but.
Oh, let's see. Right. Is that better?
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, no echo.
No echo, though. Yeah, good.
Okay.
All
right.
Yeah,
perfect.
Okay.
All right, Lakina, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I know you've been feeling, you've been underway the last few, like the kind of that weeks. Are you feeling better?
Yes, I'm definitely feeling better for sure. I was dealing with a sinus infection actually, so yeah, I'm a lot better.
Okay.
Yeah, those are definitely not fun.
Yeah,
no, not at all.
Yeah, I'm about to say been there. Okay, let's talk about some happy stuff for a second. Now, did you watch the World Baseball Classic? We saw our guys did pretty well. I mean, of course, Tim Anderson and Lance Lynn for the United States. Manika, I know he got a little bit banged up, but like he's going to be back. So, did you watch it, or do you think this will affect the Sox performances at all?
I watched bits and pieces of it. I especially watched, obviously, Japan against the United States. Last batter up, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, Shohei against Mike Trout. My fiance and I were watching that, he's an Angels fan. And he said this, he said, MLB could not be happier right now with what's happening in this scenario.
Yeah, do you think that we know that the World Baseball Classic will continue? The next one is in 3 years, but do you think do you think it will bring new generation of baseball fans like yourself and younger fans to watch Major League Baseball?
I think so. I even had the idea because obviously some major players were hurt during this whole series.
Yeah.
Jose Altuve, he's out presumably for most of the season, if not the entire season. So it got me thinking that maybe this is going to be a chance for younger guys to step in. And what I mean by that is maybe getting someone in AA, AAA, someone that isn't in the big leagues quite yet, but this could be a step towards that. So maybe that's a possibility just because you still need your players for the whole season, right? It stinks for Astros fans that they have to lose Jose Altuve like that. So that's why, in my mind, I think maybe that could be the next step for this.
Same thing happened with the Edwin Diaz. We talked about that with our buddy Ryan Field from ABC 7 New York, with the Mets. So it's gonna be interesting. Now we did get a chance to ask Jordan this, but there have been some rumors that if the White Sox don't do well, they have a slow start or whatever, Tim Anderson could be on the trading block. So what do you think about those rumors?
Boy, isn't it always before Jose got traded? Wasn't it always Jose's going to get traded? Tim Anderson's going to get traded. Everyone's going to get traded.
Lance Lynn, yeah.
Yeah, and look, Jose Abreu was the face of the White Sox franchise. You know, for almost a decade, he was their guy that they would feature in everything. So now who's going to be that guy for them? It could be Dylan Cease. I think it will be Dylan Cease eventually. But then you think of veterans now on the team, and you think of a guy like Tim Anderson. So I would like to say I don't think that they're going to trade him, because you do need that veteran. You do need someone in that clubhouse to get your mind right and to get your head in a better game situation. But I guess it just depends on what a coach has in his head. You know, it just depends on what the organization sees for the future of the organization.
I think if the ship SHIP, if the ship goes south this year, I think Tim Anderson's name will be on the trading block along with Lucas Giolito, because Lucas Giolito will be a free agent after this year. Before we get into our baseball predictions, Christine, I saw this on Foul Territory, the new baseball podcast by former MLB Network host Scott Braun. And of course, AJ Brzezinski is involved in it as well as his co-host.
Yeah.
And Lance Lynn came out earlier this week, said he's talked to Liam Hendriks, and it said via Lance Lynn, he said that the target date for Liam Hendriks could be late May, early June. Of course, the White Sox won't say anything until next week when the season starts, which is 6 days away for those of you scoring at home. But did you hear about that news? Did you see the clips on social media from what Lance Lynn said? If so, what were your thoughts?
I saw a couple of things going around, especially during spring training, how they were seeing Liam and how he was really responding well to treatment. He was throwing with the guys. He was interacting with the team. And I think that's all just really good signs of not only a guy that's really fighting this, but also he's wanting to get back out there. He could have just stayed wherever he's at, receiving his treatment and not go out to spring training, but he did. And it just shows his dedication for the team. And it just shows how hungry he still is for the White Sox and just to win in general, whether he's fighting cancer or not.
Yeah, I think that's a good sign too, that he's out there with the team and he's been there, training and working out. So hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully he will be back by at the latest, maybe mid-June. So, I'm sure he'll be going, in AAA to kind of, make sure to get his physicals going. And so I'm sure it's going to take him a while to kind of, get back into shape. But look, like I said, anybody could conquer this and, be,
it's him.
It's him, totally, without a doubt. All right. Go ahead. No, okay. Well, you want to do the win totals first, or you have another question for Christine?
Let's do the win totals first for the White Sox, and then we'll give the picks for the rest of the divisions.
Okay, because I know we talked about this with Jordan a few minutes ago. The win totals between maybe 80 to maybe 83 or 84, depending on who you talk to. So, Christine, I'll start with you. What do you think will be the White Sox win total this year?
I'm gonna say 86. I think they have a good momentum going this season, especially with Grifol as their head coach now, and just a whole bunch of scenarios coming into play. I think with Liam getting, diagnosed with cancer too, this motivates the guys to actually play well, not just for themselves, but for their teammate that's going through this battle. So I think that's going to cause a different feel in the locker room for sure.
I've been debating in my head over the last couple of weeks, between 87 and 90. I think I'm going to go with our guy, Jordan Lazowski. I will say 90 because I think between 87 and 90 wins will win this AL Central. Of course, Cleveland had 90, 91, 92 wins last year to beat the Sox by 11 games. So I'm going with 90, but to Christine's point, you had them at 86. Tampa Bay Rays made it in as the last wild card team from the AL. They had 86 wins.
86, yep.
So we'll see what the White Sox do this year. How many wins that you had the White Sox this year? I have them at 90. This thing has 86 for those scoring at home.
I'm keeping with Christina. I think it's gonna be 86 or 87. I think they'll win some series that they'll have no business winning. They'll win the series that they're supposed to. They may have a hard time against that top tier. It's gonna be the division. I think we saw what happened last year. It was the division that kind of killed them. So they need to get that together. If they can get those wins in the division, they got a shot. But I'm keeping it like an 86 or 87, somewhere around there.
I think you bring up an interesting point, Lakina, that you mentioned earlier. Everybody's going to play everybody in baseball this year for the first time since the history of the world. Interleague play is not interleague play anymore. You're going to play everybody, and you have less division games off your schedule. I believe you're going to play your division opponents 13 times, and that's across baseball for everybody. So you're not going to get a chance to beat up on the Tigers and the Royals like you used to. I know the Sox have been struggling against the Royals over the last few years, but you're not going to beat up everybody as you want to in the divisions anymore. So I think that's another element to add as well. So we'll see how teams adjust to that. So I'll ask Christine and Lakina first. Do you have the Sox winning divisions with your win totals? Christine, I'll start with you first.
Gosh, I hope so. I mean, I think the team is so, with a new manager and just a couple of new faces, I'm going to say no for now. And that could change as the season goes on, but I'm going to say no.
Yeah,
we'll ask you later, Christine. Does 86 wins, in your opinion, get them into the playoffs? But we'll ask that later.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think they're just going to miss by a couple of games to Cleveland. I think there's just, if I have to choose like right now, I mean, they'll get more wins, but I don't think it's going to be enough to win that division.
All right, let's go to the American League East. Of course, the Yankees won the division last year. Toronto and Tampa Bay were the two of the three wildcard teams from the American League to get in last year. Of course, the surprise of the division were the Baltimore Orioles. They had 83 wins. So, of course, bringing up the rear were the Boston Red Sox. They had injuries from mid-June on, so they failed to qualify for the playoffs, unlike the year before. Who do you guys see winning the AL East? Lakina, I'll start with you.
I think the Yankees will win it. I think they'll just beat out Toronto, and I love that Toronto squad, but I think the Yankees are on a mission this year. Aaron just got that fresh paper. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be like maybe 2 games, but I think the Yankees will win the division.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Yankees too, just because they were on a hot streak last year. Let's be honest. I mean, it seemed like they were going to be unstoppable. And with the addition of Anthony Rizzo in the mid-season, that just accelerated the process, I think. And he got a nice little contract from the Yankees too. So they actually have something to play for. And I agree with what Lakina said.
Okay. And I would take the Yankees to win the AL East, as you said, Lakina, barely over Toronto. Now, the AL West, of course, we mentioned Jose Altuve will miss at least will miss some time at the start of the season for the Houston Astros, but the Texas Rangers are much improved. They have new veteran manager Bruce Bochy. Oakland stinks. They still rebuilding. They may play in Vegas in a few years, but that's a whole nother story. You still have the Anaheim Angels. Shohei Ohtani, you may be watching him in the Angels uniform for the last time. He's a free agent at the end of the year. And you still have Lakina Seattle Mariners, who lost to Toronto in last year's wild card round. Who takes home the AL West title? Will it be slam dunk in Houston? Will because somebody come out and surprise them? Christine, I'll start with you.
I don't know, Chris. Do you think I should pick the Angels for this one? Yes, for division. Do you think they will win the AL West?
No, I think they're a wild card team.
He said a wild card team.
Okay.
Sid is giving you the big eyes right now.
It's the Astros and everybody else.
He said it's the Astros and everybody else. So I don't know. Based on that, it's so tough because now with Jose Altuve out, you know what? This is the one time I'm going to go against my loving fiance here, and I'm going to say the Angels just because if they don't win this year, Shohei's out. So you got to do something to keep Shohei on the team.
Lakina?
I'm gonna pick Seattle. I'm gonna go out there. Look,
Sid has an even bigger expression for that one.
Oh yeah.
But Seattle's a good young ball club. Remember, rookie outfielder Julio Rodriguez came out of nowhere last year, and the Seattle gave him fresh cash, as the kids would say. So he's a good staple for that ball club. So
Well, yeah,
that's not a bad pick at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I think I think Houston will still be good even without Altuve. So, because there's a lot of depth there, so I think it'll be between those two. But I think Seattle will win out. Now, watch, they end up not getting it until getting the wild card instead. But okay,
I'll be the bad guy. Yeah, I'll be the bad guy and take the Astros, but I don't think it's going to be easy as people think. Now, since we have our division winners, yeah, we had the East, the Central, and the West, of course. Yeah, so we 3 wild card teams from the American League. Lakina, I'll start with you.
Okay, I'll take Houston as one of the wild cards. I think they'll like I said, I think Seattle will just beat them. I'll say Toronto as my second wild card team. Y'all know how much I love the Toronto squad. And I'll say the Rays. I think the White Sox will just miss the playoffs. I think the Rays will get them by like a couple of games.
Okay. So we didn't get to the AL Central, but Lakina has presuming Cleveland winning the AL Central.
I got Cleveland winning. I got Cleveland winning the Central.
Okay, Christine, you said the White Sox will have 86 wins. Does that have enough for them to make it as a wild card? I'll ask you, what is your give us your 3 wild card teams.
White Sox. Okay. So I don't have the White Sox winning the division.
Okay.
I'll say Seattle. I agree with that. I think Seattle. And then I'm going to go Houston too, because again, look, we all could be wrong, me and Lakina, and just say, yeah, they're going to get the wild card and they end up winning the whole thing. But again, with a big player like Jose Altuve, that's going to hurt a little bit, I think.
I'm going to step out and say the White Sox will win the division with the 90 wins. Cleveland will get that first wild card. The second wild card for me is Toronto. And coming out of the AL West will be Seattle. So those are my 3 wild card teams: Cleveland, Toronto, and Seattle.
And look at that. Nothing's much surprised me though. So yeah, I mean, the Sox doing a win division. Okay, look, that won't be. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, that division's still winnable. So we'll see what happens. Now let's go to the NL for a second. Let's go to the we'll do the Central first. Now, I don't have the Cubs winning. They're not ready just yet.
No, they're nowhere ready.
No, well, yeah, I think I might be surprised with my wild card picks. Well, Buckets at the second. So I'm gonna pick I'm picking St. Louis though.
I'll go with St. Louis as well.
I'm between the Brewers in my head and St. Louis, but I think I'm gonna go with St. Louis.
I think Wilson Contreras, the former Cub, will have a big year for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lot to prove, and he wants to kind of unintentionally stick it to the Cubs. So, but we just see what that next week with that first meeting between those two teams. That's going to be interesting. All right, now let's do the East. Sid, you go first.
Philadelphia, sad news for them. Reese Hopkins, their big bopper, he had suffered an injury yesterday. He's going to be out indefinitely. They already had Bryce Harper out to at least I think the All-Star break, and so they're going through it right now. The Mets lost their closer in Edwin Diaz basically for the entire year.
Much, yep.
So I'm going with the Atlanta Braves.
I like that pick. I was going between the Mets and the Braves, so I'm gonna go with the Braves. You convinced me, Sid.
Thank you. Remember they took it from the Mets last year when the Mets collapsed in September.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking Atlanta too. Yeah, I think especially with Diaz being out, that's a big loss for the Mets. So I know Swanson's with the Cubs now, but I think they've got enough talent there in Atlanta to kind of stay right there in that division. So I'm gonna pick the Braves too. So yeah, so we're all in agreement on that one. That pretty cool there. The West, West. I'm gonna say I know, boy, it's gonna be it's gonna be like a little tussle between the Dodgers and the Padres. I'm gonna say the Dodgers. I know they've lost some talent, but they actually reload on some talent too. So I'm picking the Dodgers. It's gonna be close. It might come down to the last week of the season, but I think the Dodgers will squeak out the division again.
I'm going with San Diego. They beat the Dodgers in the playoffs last year in the divisional series, and in 4 games. They have a lot of momentum going into this year. They still want to prove that they're not the little brothers to the Dodgers anymore. I have them winning the division. The Dodgers will obviously keep it close. While I have them as a wild card team, stay tuned.
Christine?
Dodgers. It's just like how the Houston is what Chris said. Houston over everything else. So now it's Dodgers over everything else.
Okay.
All right. Now, wild card. Now, mine, I have the Padres. I have the Mets. And I think the Phillies will squeak it out. I think the Phillies will do just enough to get into that second wild card like they did last year.
Christine?
I'm going to go with the Padres, too. Oh boy. I don't know why, but it seems like Miami's getting a little momentum too right now, the Marlins. I don't know why, but no, I'm going to go with Padres, Mets. Oh, this is tough. You know what? I'm just going to say the Cubs to throw it in there because who knows? They could surprise us. So I'm just going to go with it and say they're not going to win the division, but maybe something's going to kick their butts. So just to get the Cubs a little bit of a confidence boost, I'm going to say them.
Watch if it happens, we'll give you the credit for it.
They'll give you all the credit. Yes,
something
that would be something. Sid.
I agree with you, you guys, about San Diego and the Mets. I think the Mets will find a way to get in, but I do not have Philadelphia in this year. I'll stay with the NL Central, but I'm going with the Brewers.
See, I was gonna go do that one too.
It could be, look, like I say, I think, look, it might be a bond between those two, the Brewers and the Cubs for that, for that last spot. So we'll see. I mean, look, I wouldn't be shocked. It'll be very interesting. Yeah, that'll be
all right. And one more pick, your World Series winner, as Lakina says, don't take this at face value.
Yeah, don't take none of this at face value. Oh boy, shoot. You know what? I'll go with the old guard. I'll say the Yankees. It's been a long time for them, so I'll say the Yankees. They're due for one this year.
Christine?
My heart is saying the White Sox, obviously.
Of course.
But logic, boy. There's like 3 different teams circling my head right now.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so tough. I don't know. I know that I'm going between Yankees or Boston or the Angels. Because like I said, if they want to keep Shohei, they got to win. So,
we'll say don't be. I'll say you can. Like I said, well, if you want to change it, halfway through this season, we'll give you that little mulligan there. So we're gonna get the mulligan there halfway through.
I'm gonna say the Yankees for now. For now, I'm sticking with the Yankees because that's like the sure like powerhouse of like
Okay.
And to mix things up, I will go with Slam Diego, the San Diego Padres.
Slam Diego.
That's what our parents called him a couple years ago.
Well, look, our buddy Herb Lawrence will like that pick. So
yeah,
big history with them. So all right, folks, those are our picks for MLB this coming season. Of course, again, don't take them at face value. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Channel Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, our girl KXRB's Christine Manika joining us. Let's talk a little NFL real quick, guys. Well, Christine, let's get your thoughts on some of the signs for the Bears so far. Of course, they've got Edmonds, among many others. So, what grade would you give the Bears so far with their free agent signings and the offseason stuff?
I don't know what Ryan Poles is doing, but he's cooking something. And right now, they look great on paper. Seriously, like they just look like this is the team to look out for in the NFC and just in the NFC North too. So I think if I were to grade how this trading and offseason is going, I would say I would give them a solid A. Like I would give them a solid. I was teetering between a B or an A or like an A minus. So I think I'm going to say an A minus for that one. Oh, Chris is saying it's an A. Like, straight up. Just give him it. There was something with Carolina just recently that they got. I can't remember the big player that. Adam Thielen. This is sneaky of Carolina, because here's the deal: if Ryan Poles would have waited just a little bit longer, we could have gotten Adam Thielen out of the deal. Because I think Thielen would have done great with the Bears. Just to have a veteran guy like him on that team is something that I think they need. So I'm a little bit salty about, like, oh, you could have held up for just a little bit longer and just gotten Thielen out of it. I know he's, past his prime time of the career, but he's still a good player. And even just to get something going for the line, he would have been great, even if it was just for a couple of years.
But I think because of that trade what the Bears did with Carolina for swapping picks in the first round, and of course acquiring DJ Moore, I think that's what did it in. If they were thinking about Thielen,
right? Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, that might be interesting.
Still sneaky, still very sneaky.
Look, I mean, the Panthers are, look, Frank Reich. I think that he has a lot to prove. After what happened at Indy, so you get all this. He brought the band back together pretty much. So yeah, I think that's kind of sort of like that mindset there. So we'll see who the Panthers pick at number 1 now.
Yeah. Speaking of the Panthers, real quick. We didn't get Christine's thoughts on this. I think she told us what she thought via our direct message. But they're going to draft a rookie quarterback, whether it's CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. But they signed veteran Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton.
Disgusting. I'm going to be sick.
Well, look, has
anybody not learned, from the last gosh knows how many seasons? I can't say this. The NFL got smart about Carson Wentz. Nobody picked him up. That's what they got smart about.
Yeah, he'll probably be your new the new version of Nick Foles. When the season starts, when quarterbacks go down, they'll probably give him a call to come and sub in for a couple of weeks.
I still feel bad for Nick Foles, poor guy.
Right, do you think he plays in 2023? I'm talking about Nick Foles. I think he does, because quarterbacks get hurt all the time.
I think he does. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Someone's gonna get injured. They're gonna need somebody. So I'm sure he's gonna keep himself in shape. Someone will call him, I'm sure.
Yeah, keep that cell phone charging.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ezekiel Elliott, of course, was released by Dallas. He has his choices of the Eagles, the Jets, or the Bengals. So does he go with the Bengals? Does he go with I know some people say his best fit would be the Eagles, the Jets, of course. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers and Jets and the Packers will figure out the top position.
Either way,
go ahead.
I was to say, either way, when it comes to Ezekiel Elliott, what a bust that was for Dallas. I mean, Jerry Jones thought that he was hitting the lottery with that guy, when he just signed that massive contract with Dallas not too long ago. So just an unfortunate situation there. I still can't figure out what happened to him besides maybe some injuries or whatnot. I don't know, but I hope he's successful wherever he goes next, but I don't think he'll be the same player that we first saw in Dallas.
When you get up there in your upper 20s and your lower 30s, that's considered senior citizen age in the NFL period, especially for running backs. The way that his running style is not valued in what the NFL is today. We know it's all about offense and passing. So with Ezekiel Elliott choosing if it's between Philadelphia, Cincinnati, or the Jets, long as he's in that backup role, he'll be fine. And so he'll find success wherever he goes. I want to ask, before we move on, Christy, I want to ask you about David Montgomery. He signed with the Detroit Lions. Now expectations are high since they barely missed the playoffs last year. How do you think he's going to do for the Lions?
I think he's going to do great. I can't believe the Bears wouldn't keep him because he's such a great guy on and off the field, and just a big, strong asset to the team. There's one thing that I can say about the Bears. No matter how many times we rip on their offensive line, defensive line, coaches, quarterbacks, whatever, the running back position has never, knock on wood, never been an issue for this team. So that's something that I can confidently say that is going to keep on progressing for the Bears. but unfortunately, it's not going to have David Montgomery in it. And I think the Chicago fan base is going to miss him as a player for sure, and just someone who was very active in the community. And I think Detroit's going to really benefit from it for sure. They were right there last year, you know, and this is just going to feed into that.
Yeah, I want to ask, has there been was there a trade so far, or a free agent sign that kind of made you scratch their head? Were you surprised? What kind of what's jumped out at you?
I think Jimmy G going to Vegas kind of was like, I didn't think he would do that, just because Vegas and Jimmy G, that could be an interesting combination.
Yes.
There was a video that the Raiders posted, I think the other day, of him looking at the stadium for the first time. First of all, he's just so gosh darn attractive. It's hard not to look at him and think, can you not be attractive for 5 minutes? Even in just like a minute long video. So, I mean, I think the Raiders, they've been through a lot the last couple of seasons. And I think them letting Derek Carr go just shows how difficult it has been for them. So I hope that Jimmy G is the guy that's gonna turn it around for them. Baker going to Tampa, I was very shocked about that one. I thought maybe the Rams would keep him, that maybe they would form him and mold him a little bit. So that one kind of surprised me a little bit. What's not surprising is Aaron Rodgers just putting on a show for everybody and just saying, oh, it's happening. The trade's happening. It's like, well, dude, then why are we even talking about it? It's such a media circus, and I think he's enjoying it.
Lose my number.
Yeah. Oh yeah, told
Lose my
Shefty.
number.
Yeah, told Shefty that. Yeah, you used to say about Jimmy G. I mean, it's pretty funny because wasn't there like a brothel in Vegas that say, hey, you'll have your pick of women or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh God, that's yeah. Hello Vegas. I guess what happens in Vegas, as long as you're protected and everyone's safe.
Well, Jimmy's gonna know what happens in Vegas, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Exactly. Let's see here.
I want to ask Christine this. Have you been watching the NCAA tournament? We had 2 instant classic games last night with Michigan State, Kansas State, and then of course UCLA losing to Gonzaga.
I've watched a little bit here and there. I've heard of what happened. I tell you what, when Purdue lost, my Facebook feed was full of angry Boilermaker fans. I tell you. Not only did they lose to a 15 seed last year, but now to a 16 seed, who, by the way, wasn't even supposed to be in the tournament in the first place.
There you go. Exactly.
Oh man, I can proudly say though, I still have 3 teams in my Final Four that are in it: Alabama, Houston, and Gonzaga. The one that let me down was Kentucky. I can honestly say I'm proud of myself for that.
We'll give you an applause, Christine.
Yeah. I'll say your brackets are better than mine then, because my mind were like, I didn't mind. Look, I was okay with Purdue losing because I didn't have them coming out of that region. It was when Duke and Kansas both lost, I was like done for. I'm like, okay, I'm finished. I'm finished. You got the WGC match play. Dell Technologies match play tournament is going on right now down in Austin, Texas. Your buddy Victor Hovland won his match, his opening round. Well, not opener, but I think second round. Cause I know it's been some weather issues down there. Who do you think's gonna win that?
Chris, who do you think's gonna win?
Ooh, talk amongst yourselves. Give me 30 seconds.
Give me 30 seconds. I think I'm thinking Rory's due a little bit. I think this would be a good win for him, and he's been looking really well recently. Jordan Spieth, he's had a couple of good swings this tournament as well. Have you thought about it yet, Chris?
Victor Hovland cannot win.
Oh, he said Victor Hovland cannot win.
Oh yeah, your guy Hovland. I'll say Chef. I'll say Scotty Scheffler. I'll go with the other hot hand. I know Rob's not there, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, well, Jason Day, I know he won his match against Colin Morikawa earlier, so should be a fun one. Always a fun one. Chris, you got
Chris, you got one?
You got a name for it?
Oh, he's got someone.
I do.
Who?
Scheffler will be tough to beat, but I'm going to go with Max Homa.
Max Homa,
I like that.
He's going with.
I like it. Yeah, I like that. He's been playing pretty well too lately. So yeah. Could it be interesting?
And he got a day off unexpectedly today, so there you go.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know they're having weather issues down there, so they probably got to play 2 matches, like 2 or 3 matches tomorrow. So it's gonna be pretty interesting. Want to give a shout out to Cindy Crosby, who a couple of days ago got a 30-point goal, a 30-goal season. 18-year-old, he had his first season when he was 18. Now he has it at 36. So still playing at a pretty high level. Same with Alex Ovechkin. Got his 40th goal this season. This is his 13th career 40-goal season, passing Wayne Gretzky. So congrats to both those legends.
Yay!
All right, y'all anything else you want to say? Well, okay. How about the women's side, Christine, on the women's tournament? Who do you have there? They're playing right now as we speak.
Oh boy. Yeah, I didn't research that extensively enough, unfortunately. But I will say Iowa's just killing it. So I'm going.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark is good.
Yeah.
she is.
She's
She's
better
terrific.
than good.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that, Caitlin. Caitlin Clark. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we disperse?
Yes, I just saw this from our good friends at awfulannouncing.com. NFL owners considering flex schedule for Thursday night football. This could mean that Thursday nights between weeks 14 and 17.
I think
they're going to do that for Monday Night Football next year in 2023.
Right.
And now the owners want to do the same thing for Thursday Night Football.
I say get rid of Thursday Night Football entirely, but we can't have nice things. So, Christine, I'll let you have the floor for this one, Christine.
I'd say keep Thursday Night Football and get rid of Monday Night Football. I don't need, especially when the Bears play. I don't want my week to start off sour after they lose.
Oh my goodness!
I'd rather have them lose on a Thursday, so that way I can just go out and forget about that they even lost.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of Thursday night. I know this was definitely a money grab. Now the flex part, could get me interested a little bit, but I never liked Thursday night football. Even when it was on network television, I was never a fan of it. Especially with the games being terrible. So
and don't forget, Amazon would get the Black Friday game starting next season. That's the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh boy,
that gives something else Michael's to look forward to.
Right. Okay. Oh yeah. Exactly. I wonder if it's gonna be the last season for him because I know that he's kind of look. He doesn't.
I'm
look
sure he
80s.
wanted it to be the last season last year when he got terrible games.
Right. So maybe this will give him to stay a little bit. Now they're going to be doing the flex say after this season, coming season, not till like the next season. But yeah, hopefully this might keep him around for a little. He might stay around for a little bit, another couple of years. All right. On that note, you follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter and at Keita McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80, SIDKIDA0, SIDKIDA0. Christine, where can lovely people follow you on social media?
They can follow me at @Manika_KXRB.
All right, of course, you guys you can check out our show. Anytime you want on Ward Media Podcast. Remember, that's the new name now, Ward Media Podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, Google Play, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We also want to thank our buddy Sox on 35th, Jordan Lazowski, for joining us as always. You can check out his podcast, Sox on 35th, wherever you get your podcast as well. What else did I miss anything, Sid?
And of course, the loving Miss Christine, the Queen Manika.
Of course.
Soon to be husband Chris for directing in the background.
Yes, you're getting credit.
Background commentary. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Background commentary.
Of course, he's very watching much golf right now. We have to get him on for him to talk golf.
Yes. Oh, well, the Masters are coming up in a couple of weeks, so maybe we can.
Chris, you want to talk Masters?
In a couple weeks.
In a couple weeks?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yes, he's like, yes.
Okay,
all right. Love it. Hopefully Tiger will be playing too, so that Sid will be a little bit engaged.
Yes.
Maybe we'll see there. But of course, you check out Sports of Chicago, also on Roku TV. Of course, Sports of Chicago, type it up. It's right there for you. Whatever you get your podcasts or your apps and such, whatever smart device that you got. It's all right there for you. Check out our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. What's up, cousin? I know the Smoke Fellas will probably have a lot of basketball talk coming up tomorrow. So Sid, yeah, I think we got everything, right, Sid?
Yes, we got everything covered.
All right. I know it's gonna be a little bit rainy in some parts of the Midwest, so make sure stay safe, stay dry, and enjoy all the sports coming up this weekend with, of course, with the tournament on both the men's and women's side, the golf with the match play, NBA, the spring training's finishing up, some soccer, it's all covered for you this time of year. You gotta love it.
Yes.
All right, so for Sid and Christine and Chris, I'm Manika, the Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you Monday.
Love, peace, and hair grease. Holla!